Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's stories, they are not just headlines. They are warning. Warning about fear, pressure, racism, crime, immigration crackdowns, and the hidden struggles many Indians abroad are silently facing. This is Skyline. I am Driti Atri, breaking down 8 major stories that are shaking Indian diaspora right now. Canada tonight is witnessing a massive controversy involving 7 Indian origin men linked to extortion-related cases. And the reaction online, it has become explosive. The Surrey Police Service in Canada released photos and names of 7 Indian origin individuals allegedly connected to this particular case and related to that, which is even horrible. And then something happened that completely changed the atmosphere online. Many social media users noticed that several of the accused shared the same surname, Singh. Within hours, anti-India comments, it exploded online. Anti-Sikh remarks, they started spreading. Calls for deportation began appearing every single where. And suddenly, a criminal investigation turned into a wider social and political debate. Now think about the larger issue here. One crime headline involving Indian origin suspects immediately affects the image of a wider diaspora. Many of the peaceful Indian immigrants suddenly find themselves facing online hate because of the actions that are not even related to them. You know what? That is the uncomfortable reality many diaspora communities face today. In the meantime, Canadian authorities say that some of these names, they have already been deported by border agency. And at the very same time, another Indo-Canadian suspect linked to this particular case, it has reportedly been arrested, though the investigations, they are still ongoing. But the social reaction has already become so dangerous because now many Indians and many Sikhs in Canada, they fear increasing racism and suspicion. And yes, this is happening at the time when relationship between India and Canada, they are already politically sensitive, which basically means every headline now, it carries even bigger consequences. Now, let's go to America, where a federal judge has raised serious questions about how immigration arrests are being carried out by ICE. And the story matters very much for the immigrants across the United States. The judge reportedly said guidance used for warrantless immigration arrests do not properly meet the constitutional standards here. Wait, that means the court is questioning whether immigration officers are following the proper legal safeguards before detaining people. Now, think about the atmosphere this creates. Across America, immigration raids are already creating fear inside immigrant communities, right? Families worry when someone leaves for work. Students worry during travel. In fact, undocumented workers, they fear surprise enforcement operations. And now, a federal judge is publicly criticizing parts of the arrest process itself. This particular case is connected to immigration sweeps launched under tougher immigration policies. Civil rights groups argue that innocent people, they can sometimes get caught inside aggressive operation. And in the meantime, US authorities, they insist that they are acting lawfully and protecting national security. But tonight, this legal battle reveals something deeper. Immigration in America is no longer just a policy debate. It has become emotional, political, and explosive. And for many Indians living in the United States, specifically visa holders, students, and families waiting for the green card, every immigration headline now creates anxiety for them. Because one policy change, it can completely change somebody's future overnight. Now, here comes the story that has left many Indians heartbroken. A 26-year-old Telugu student in California reportedly passed away from cardiac arrest, and that too just one day after his graduation ceremony. Can you imagine that moment? A young student moves thousands of kilometers away from his home, studies for years, faces financial pressure, visa pressure, economic pressure, and loneliness. Finally, he graduates. Finally, he reaches the moment that he dreamt about. And then suddenly, tragedy strikes. According to reports, Mohammad Kamul Sheikh, he has just completed his studies at Golden Gate University in San Francisco. Friends say that he was excited about future, excited to support his family, excited to finally begin the next chapter of life in America. But within hours, everything changed for him. Reports suggest that he suffered cardiac arrest in his sleep. And now this particular tragedy is raising another deeply uncomfortable conversation. Why are so many young Indians abroad? They are passing away from cardiac arrest. Over the last few years, in fact, similar cases have repeatedly appeared from the United States, Canada, Australia, and Europe. Young students, young professionals, young NRIs, many in their 20s or maybe 30s. This has triggered a wave of concern inside Indian communities abroad. People are discussing stress, isolation, work pressure, poor sleep, mental exhaustion, and the hidden health impact of chasing the foreign dream. Tonight, the story is not just about one student. It is about silent pressure many young Indians abroad are carrying every single day. Now, to one of the most viral stories online, Indian origin YouTuber, Mr. Who's the Boss. He has revealed a shocking experience involving the US immigration authorities. And millions online, they are reacting emotionally. According to Arun Maini, he traveled to America years ago for a major business project worth roughly about $300,000. But instead of entering the country normally, he says he was detained by the border officials. And then came the disgusting part. He claims that he was strip searched, questioned very aggressively, and held for nearly 26 hours before being deported back to the UK. In fact, he described the feeling isolated, scared, powerless, and completely cut off from his family. Now, whether viewers fully agree with every detail or not, this story has kind of touched a nerve online. Because many immigrants and travelers say that they fear secondary screening at the airport, specifically after visa issue, documentation confusion, and travel red flags. But what shocked the viewers the most, it was his emotional description of the feeling inhumane during the detention. And now social media is filled with debate. Some people say that border authorities, they were simply following the procedure. Others say the treatment sounded humiliating and excessive. But you know what, this story, it also reveals another reality here. Even wealthy, famous, successful Indian origin creators can suddenly face immigration problems abroad. And once again, officers stop somebody at the airport. The situation, it can become extremely intimidating very, very quickly. Now to the story that sounds almost like a movie plot. A luxury cruise ship traveling internationally has reported a hantavirus outbreak, and 2 Indians are reportedly part of the crew on board. The Dutch vessel MV Honduras, it was traveling across international waters when multiple suspected infections emerged. Several people, they were all passed away. And now it has been linked to this virus. And suddenly global health crisis, it is again in the headlines. Now hear this very carefully. This is not COVID. The World Health Organization itself clarified that this virus, it spreads differently. But the word virus outbreak, it immediately creates a lot of panic because the world still remembers the trauma of the pandemic, right? Passengers reportedly began disembarking from the vessel. Health authorities, they started tracing contracts. In fact, protected equipments, they were provided to everybody on board. And now families of crew members, and that too across multiple countries, they are watching very nervously. Among the crew was reportedly 2 Indian nationals. And stories like this again shows how globally connected Indians have become today. Indian workers are everywhere. Cruise ship, hospitals, technology companies, airlines, hotels, universities, name it. Which also means whenever international crises happen, Indians are often directly affected too. And tonight, many people are once again asking a very frightening question. Are we truly preparing for another global health scare or not? Now comes a story that has triggered outrage in Britain. Ladies and gentlemen, an Indian origin biotechnology engineer has admitted to exposing himself during an Emirates flight from Dubai to the UK. And the details, they are shocking. According to the court report, the incident allegedly happened beside a woman traveling with her child. Can you imagine the scene for a moment? You're inside an aircraft thousands of feet above the ground. There is no escape, there is no way to leave, and suddenly the passenger behind you, he behaves in a very odd way. The woman reportedly alerted cabin crew after being uncomfortable. The accused was later detained. And during questioning, prosecutors say that he admitted to exposing himself during the flight. Now, this particular case, it has exploded into headlines, not only because of the allegations, but because incidents involving bad passenger behavior, they are rising globally. And shamefully, Indians, they are in the headline. Flight fights, public intoxication, mid-air incidents and aggressive passengers. Well, these are the headlines. Every few months, another shocking aviation story, it appears. But for Indians who are living abroad, stories like this, it creates another uncomfortable issue. One viral headline can instantly affect the image of an entire community. Millions of Indians, they travel internationally every single year, peacefully and responsibly, but one shocking case suddenly it dominates the global headline. And now this particular incident, it is becoming another widely discussed international story involving an Indian origin passenger abroad. Now back to America, ladies and gentlemen, where ICE has arrested 2 Indian nationals linked to criminal conviction. According to reports, one case, it involves a child. In fact, another involved a theft conspiracy worth more than $60,000. ICE says both individuals are now in custody and could face deportation proceeding very soon. And once again, immigration enforcement is becoming a huge talking point in America. Supporters of tougher immigration laws say that criminal offenders should be removed quickly. Critics worry aggressive enforcement, it creates fear inside immigrant communities further. But tonight, the bigger issue is perception here, because every time Indian origin individuals appear in crime headlines, online reaction that becomes intense. Some people, they unfairly stereotype entire communities. In fact, others, they demand stricter immigration restriction, and suddenly, law-abiding immigrants feel the social consequences too. And at the very same time, Indian communities in America are also becoming increasingly nervous about ICE enforcement operation. You know why? Because immigration crackdown do not only affect undocumented migrants, they create fear everywhere. Student becomes cautious, workers become anxious, families become uncertain, and tonight these arrests are once again pushing immigration fear back into the spotlight. Wait, tonight all these stories together reveal something much bigger. The life of an Indian diaspora abroad, it is becoming increasingly complicated. For years, social media mostly showed one side of foreign life: luxury cars, dollar salaries, beautiful homes, success stories. But behind those images, there is a reality. Visa stress, loneliness. In fact, there is racism, crime fear, mental pressure, immigration uncertainty, cultural isolation, and constant pressure to succeed. And that does not mean life abroad is bad. No, millions of Indians continue achieving extraordinary success globally. Doctors, engineers, scientists, in fact, entrepreneurs, creators, students. The Indian diaspora remains one of the most successful immigrant community in the world today. But tonight's story reminds us that life abroad, it is not automatically easy. And perhaps this is the biggest lesson from all these headlines. The foreign dream comes with a price. Sometimes emotional, sometimes financial, sometimes psychological, and sometimes deeply personal. Tonight, the Indian diaspora is once again making headlines across the globe. But the real question is this: behind the success stories, how many Indians abroad, they are silently struggling?